Hi all, my name's Olivia Morrissey. Welcome back to this space where we bridge all things spiritual and human. And today's topic is the epitome of both spiritual and human, and it is sacred bleeding. And I feel you. If your first thought isn't already, this is so gross, why blood, this is so taboo, seriously, do that shit on the West Coast, Olivia, you're back on the East Coast, nobody wants to talk about this, I hear you. And if your second thought is, what is so holy and sacred about my abdominal cramps that are actually trying to murder me every month? I hear you again. Okay, so while I was actually probably a rare breed that was so excited to get my period, I was a late bloomer, folks. I would literally practice. I didn't know I was manifesting at the time or using mantras, but I would literally practice saying, I got my period. I got my period. I got my period. Because that's how late of a bloomer I was. And I was so fucking excited when I got it. Okay, so while I was just like a rare breed that was absolutely just living to get my period, I was socially cultured too. I'm sure, I can't really remember because I've normalized talking about periods every second I can with anyone who will ever listen in my life right now, but it was definitely a taboo at first for me, especially on the East Coast. But we're here to change that, folks, all around the world. So, and two, I am diagnosed with endometriosis, which is very similar to endo, which means that my cramps are actually bloody hell. And I call out of work all the time, and it makes my life really, really uncomfortable once a month. And I've still learned to reclaim this sacred process as something that is holy and beautiful and special and magnificent. So I'm here to initiate you into feeling the same. So in this video, we're going to talk about, one, the energetics of the sacred menstrual cycle and what makes it so darn special and absolutely mind-blowing. We're not gonna do science here. You can go to sex ed or like Google that. I don't know, I'm here for the spiritual stuff. Two, how to tune into your body more and understand what energetic experience your body is having every single week of your months, every single month. And three, how to make the actual bleed more comfortable. We're going to talk about cramps. We're going to talk about self-care. We're going to talk about really nourishing and resting during that time. So let's begin. It all started a couple years ago when I started this self-love journey, and I started going like very fervently into period taboo research. I just was like, I want to know everything about periods. I think they're super fucking cool. And like, this is a thing that happens. I want to know what my body's doing. So I started researching it. And the first thing that I learned that absolutely blew my mind is that not only do you bleed every single month because you're releasing the padding and the cushion for the egg that wasn't fertilized, but when a woman bleeds monthly, they're actually releasing and purging every single thing that they've consumed energetically, physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, every single month, right? So if you've had a really stressful month at work, or you were going through, you had a fight with a friend or a parent, or you went through a breakup, or you had a lot of, dense or emotionally charged experiences that month, more often than not, your period's going to reflect that cycle. Your period and your body have more to do. They have more to release. They have more to cleanse for you, because this is a purging process for your body, because a woman's body gets to die and rebirth itself completely anew every single 28 to 35 days on average. What the heck? I'm sorry, but other humans without uteruses don't have that. That's really cool. Our entire body goes through a natural cleansing process of everything it's consumed every single month, all on its own, without you telling it what or how to do it. Thank you, body. Thank you. Oh my gosh. So sacred, so powerful, very, very beautiful. Okay, so this brings us to taking a moment next time you bleed to say, holy crap, thanks body, like thank you. Or noticing just for a minute, wow, I'm really releasing a lot. My period's kind of heavy this week. My period's super light this cycle, just taking a an awareness, a moment of awareness, a little bit of observation, just say, you know what, this may be something that my body does every single month. I see blood every single month if you're, naturally bleeding right now. But taking one further step to say, with question, like, what's going on with it? What is it trying to tell me this month? Right? Because that's the thing, folks. Our bodies are always communicating with us every single moment of the day, right? And especially during your sacred bleed. Okay, so just as we talked about, if you've had a stressful month, your period's gonna reflect that. If you've had a really relaxing month, your period's gonna reflect that. Same thing with cramps, okay? Same thing with the heaviness of your bleed. Same thing with the length of your bleed. Your body is always trying to communicate with you. And for women, especially for humans that bleed, it is so essential for us to allow ourselves to get to a space where we start slowing down, where we start feeling safe and feeling comfortable, right? So that our body feels like it's allowed to rest, it has permission to bleed, that it's safe to bleed. Because let me tell you something, if you're a cave woman and you were trying to take care of all your twins and then you're supposed to bleed but a tiger's chasing you, you're gonna be so stressed that your body's not gonna feel safe enough to bleed that week, right? You're gonna get your period late. You ever been so stressed that you're pregnant, but you're really not pregnant, but you think you're pregnant and you convince your body not to get your period? Your body is always listening to you. Your body is always communicating to you. So I want to give you some tools to start to understand and hear what it's saying. And, I do this with my clients all the time, and this is meditating, right? This is slowing down and asking your body daily check-ins. How are you today, right? All of these are really good practices to open up a dialogue and develop a line of communication with your body. But I'm going to give you, specific to your period and your sacred bleeding process, really week by week tools and energetics to look for and identify with as you start to explore your period a little bit more. And the best way that we can start to identify where our body is at and what it's communicating to us, especially as it pertains to our bleeding cycles, is to know and identify and tune into which season we are in our cycle. So as women, the cycle is often broken down into 4 seasons that we see in the natural world: autumn, winter, spring, summer. And it's different for every single body, and you will get to know your cycle and what season feels like what to you. But I'm going to give you the breakdown of how it's for most women. And we're going to start with spring. So springtime is right after you bleed. It's that week right after you're done bleeding, and you start to notice that, just like in the natural world, things start to wake up. Flowers start to bloom. Little mating, curiosity, playful vibes are floating around in the meadows and the, gardens and whatever. And after you bleed, I don't know about you, you get to tell me about you. I notice that my body starts speeding up, right? I get this kind of like playful, flirty energy. I'm like, I'm back. I'm here, like I'm back in the world, like here I am, take me on. I'm feeling super curious and flirty and exploratory, right? And that is often called our springtime, that week after you bleed, okay? And in the natural world, summer comes right after. Summer then, as it relates to our sacred bleeding cycle, is the period of celebration. It is your ovulation stage. So when your egg is released, and the scientifics here are nutso. Your face is more symmetrical, you look more beautiful, even more beautiful than you already are. You're feeling sexy, your levels of arousal are higher. Your entire body is saying, we're trying to get it, and we're trying to get fertilized right now, right? You are so flirty, sexy, you're going out, you're looking good, right? You want to play, you want to dance, right? It's this energy of celebration, of peak energy. It is the week in your month, every month, the second week after you bleed, your ovulation week, where you have the highest amount of energy in your body, right? Because your body, your biology is saying, we need all the energy we got because we gotta be ready for a mate if it finds us or if we find it. Or we gotta be ready to receive. We gotta be ready to get pregnant, right? This can translate into, you know, non-K woman times of like, this is where you can get shit done. This is where you go out. This is where you celebrate. This is where you be with friends. This is where you work really hard with all your energy, right? Maybe you're more active. You're exercising a little bit more. The third week is your autumn or your fall season. And this is the week before your bleed, right? So you're starting to slow down now. This is often the week that women start to experience PMS, premenstrual syndrome, right? So this is where you're slowing down, you're getting a little bit more like focused, zeroed in. I'm in my autumn right now, and I love my autumn because I notice myself and my energy get so dialed in, like so specific. I'm like, my biology, my energy is like, we have to get shit done before it's winter. Winter is coming, right? I'm like, I want to work. Like I have all this like energy to kind of get rid of before I relax and go inside, which we'll talk about in a moment. So I'm like, I want to do all this content. I want to go, you know, I want to clean the house. I find myself preparing. And I'll tell you right now, one of my favorite acts of self-love and self-care for myself during my sacred bleeding cycle is in this season of autumn and fall is to prepare my body and my surroundings, my home, for the impending winter. So I make food for myself for my next week when I'm bleeding. I make really yummy soups and kitchery, and I get all my cozy things ready. And I clean the space so that when I'm in my bleed, I'm relaxing. I don't have to do as much. I can really just rest. There's one other thing that I want to say here about PMS. And premenstrual syndrome, or PMS, is that kind of agita or anxiety or irritation that we feel most potently right before we bleed. And I'm going to tell you something that is not something that is commonly shared, but watch what it is that you're specifically irritated by, because the reality and the truth is that you're irritated by that thing. Maybe your boyfriend's doing something, maybe your job is doing something, whatever. You're irritated by that thing all of the time. You are just hypersensitive and in your body and in preparation mode during your autumn season. Okay, so let me tell you, one of my pet peeves is when my honey eats my food, my special food that I buy for myself, right? My vegan, my non-dairy, my non-vegan cheeses. We'll talk about my cheese for a second. My non-dairy cheeses, okay? But if I'm like in my playful, flirty phase and he's eating my chair, I'm like, babe, if I'm ovulating, I'm like, you'll buy me more, right? Fall comes around, I'm like, did you eat my cheese again? Right? I'm pissed. Guess what though? I've been pissed about that my entire cycle. I was just experiencing different energy in my body. But now my body's telling me, we're about to go inside. We're about to go through an entire process of bleeding right now. We're about to purge everything. We need all of our ducks to be in order, right? We need all of this to be good and stable and safe, right? So the next time you're experiencing PMS and you're chalking it up to like, oh, this doesn't really bother me, it's just I'm PMSing, be gentle and just observe. Does this really bother you? Is this really irritating all the time and you're just noticing it now? Because the reality of it is you are irritated by it all the time. So after the fall, after the autumn, we have winter, and winter is your bleeding process. It is, when you think about winter in the natural world, the trees are barren, there's less food even, everyone's cozy and inside and protected. Your winter season is when you are releasing everything. You are letting it all go. You are barren, you're emptying, you're in the void. You're in the void. And it's really important and essential for you to go inside and rest, right? Go inside yourself. This is such a beautiful opportunity to do journaling, to do guided meditations or visualizations, to just think about your past month and to reflect and see how you feel. This is not a time where you have a lot of energy to expend because your entire energy is going to this purging process of your womb right now. And so my first 2 days of bleeding are reserved for me. I will switch my schedules around so that I don't have to serve anyone but myself. I don't have to do anything. I love to make sure that my room is already clean in my fall season. I love to make myself all of these beautiful meals so that when I'm in my bleed, I don't have to do a lot anymore. I get to just rest with my already low energy. My body's doing so much as it is. This isn't a time for me to go out. It's definitely not a time for me to drink alcohol or eat a lot of sugar even. And I'll talk about food in just a moment, but it's really a time where the energetics of my body, I am so in tune with what's happening internally. And I'm actually incredibly close to the spiritual realms during my bleeding week. And so are you. And this can be observed with your dreams the week of your bleeding, or your intuitive hits, or your thoughts, or the memories that come up. You are so sacredly connected because no other animal can bleed for 4 or 5 days without dying. I think that's a movie quote. But guess what? You as a bleeding woman are so close to death in that week of your life. You are the closest to death than any other animal, creature, human has ever been without dying. And yet you rebirth yourself every single month, just like that, just alone with your period. And that's how magical you are, right? Ancient cultures used to believe that women was so absolutely sacred and sensitive and intuitive when they were bleeding, right? This is why we had the red tents where women would come together and bleed in union. And the women bleeding would inform the tribe of when to act, when to go to war, when to hold back, what the food was going to be like of the year. They were absolutely revered for their closeness to death and therefore spirit in these bleeding moments. And that's really what we've lost in our Western culture today. We've really lost the art of welcoming our women into womanhood when they start bleeding. And we've really lost the practice of honoring it as such a beautiful and powerful thing, right? So often now it's like, enjoy the cramps, or like, welcome to the worst best friend of your life, Aunt Flo, right? But we don't talk about this sanctity. And the reason for this is because we as women have been very consciously and deliberately separated from the knowledge of our bodies by cultural conditioning, right? We've grown up in religious persecution of our bodies. We've grown up with our connection to our bodies being taboo. We've grown up with periods being gross and dirty and sinful. We've grown up with our bodies and our women as, sexual beings with desires as being a sin and a shame. And so and I want you to know that it's been a very deliberate process of taking women away from their bodies, because a woman in her power is a woman in her body. When you take away a woman's connection to her true self, when you demonize it and dirty it, you take away her connection to her own power. And that is my intention. That is my most grand intention with all of this sharing and all of this teaching and all of this work, is I want to see my sisters back in their bodies. I want to see me back in my body every single day, showing up every single time again, because a woman embodied is a woman in her power, right? And all that I've learned in my years, I think my nipples are getting hard just talking about this. A woman in her body is a woman in her power. And all of my years doing this work, I've learned that God is not outside. God is not somewhere that you pray, up for forgiveness or for some, destiny. God is in your body, because God is the magic and the love and the divinity that is your cycle. It is your inner knowing. It is your intuition and your heart and your trust and your soul and your spirit. So that was a little bit of a rant, but the third thing that I really wanted to talk about here is, how can we make our cycles more comfortable for us? Right? We all know, we're like, okay, that seems kind of like magical, Liv. Like, the period seems like a little bit cooler now that you talk about it like this. And I want to talk about food too. But it's just really painful for me. And how can I make it a little bit more comfortable? Because even though I think it's kind of dope that you share all this stuff about the period, it's still really painful for me and it's still kind of gross to me. And I want you to know that that's okay. And it's likely going to take a little bit of unconditioning and deconditioning to get to a space where you can reclaim your blood and reclaim your period as something really, truly beautiful. So I do want to talk about, so as far as cramps go, so I've talked about preparing foods for yourself in advance, right? Not going out, right? Not eating a lot of sugars or alcohol or toxins when you're bleeding, right? Your body's doing a lot of work to release. You don't want to add more stuff that it has to like process through. And the truth is about food, when you're bleeding, you really don't need a lot of food. You really don't. Listen to your body, of course, but I find that I really just need vegetable broth and maybe a little bit of kale, something really nourishing, maybe some spices in there, some cumin, some turmeric, but I really don't eat a lot. And what I've learned is that the best time to really support your body with nutrients and fill up on nourishment is actually the week before you're bleeding. So in your fall, in your autumn, that's when you want to prepare your body with really yummy kitchery, with cooked vegetables. Personally, I eat less animal products. But it's also important to listen to your body, because if you are low on iron, you really don't want to be when you're bleeding, because you're going to get cramps, right? So sometimes I'll even eat a little bit more fish. I'll try to eat more fish after I bleed. So in that kind of spring or summer, that like right after I bleed and when I'm ovulating, I'll try to eat more iron then so that my body has enough by the time it needs to purge. But what I've learned from these years of research is that you really don't need a lot of food during your actual bleeding cycle. It's more stocking up on the nutrients and preparing your body for pre-bleed, so in that autumn period. You can also use this information of the seasons per each week of your month to eat accordingly. So think about the stuff that you eat in winter in the natural world, right? Soups, warm things, hot water, cozy teas, like cooked veggies, root vegetables, grounding, right? These are the kinds of things that you want to eat, if you're going to eat, around that week of your period while you're kind of entering fall, winter, right? As opposed to springtime, you might start to eat more sprouted, like bean sprouts or micro sprouts or microgreens. Think about what's happening in the natural world. It is a reflection of your own body and your own inner cycle, right? So think about some of the things that you would eat during the springtime: more fruits and vegetables. In the summertime, more salads, more fruits, really light things, right? Because your body has a ton of energy and it likes to be light in the summer. It's hot out, right? Your energetic body is like, we're feeling sexy. We're trying to make a baby. That's what your biology is saying. So eat according to season that you're in. And if you're wondering what season that you're in now, just try and close your eyes and ask your body, right? It doesn't have to be like, okay, well, I got my period 2 weeks ago, so I think I'm in my, summer phase. It's like, just ask your body where it feels like. You'll know where your energy's at. You'll know. And even if it's really hard, just keep staying open to that. It's possible to learn what your body does want to share and what your body does have to say. So that was a little bit on food. So for cramps and making yourself comfortable, right? We've got making yourself food. We've got organizing your space, making it really beautiful and sacred, and cleaning it up before you bleed. I stay in bed my entire day one of my period. My bleeds are really intense that first day, no matter what kind of a month I have. And some of my favorite things here for cramps are, I have like a natural coconut salve that has CBD in it. So I'll take this salve and I'll put it right on my womb and it instantly works for me. And I can't say that about a lot of medicines. I try not to take any like Advil or Pamprin or etc. I try to really treat my bleeds with a lot of sanctity and just listening to my body and its discomfort and owning that and not putting more toxins into it. But sometimes my cramps are really bad, and they're bad because of inflammation. And if I'm really in pain, I'll take something. It's all about listening to your body. I'll take a Pamperin. But what I like to do leading up to my period, all month, I have these turmeric pills. Now, turmeric is a natural anti-inflammatory. So when I'm taking these, I'm building up my body's stock, right? I'm nourishing my body to have enough of the nutrients so that when it comes time for my period and my womb and my uterus and my ovaries are working really hard, it has the anti-inflammatory support just a little bit more. So it's just a natural way to kind of decrease inflammation in the womb, because cramps in your womb are the same as cramps in your body: dehydration and inflammation. So drinking lots of water, okay? All the time, drinking lots of water, but especially during your bleed, right? Think about winter, you want warm things. So drink a lot of warm water. Warm lemon water is so good to wake your body up and to kind of ground into your womb space. A warm womb is a happy womb, right? It's working so much. You don't want it to get cold and hard and crampy. You want it to expand with heat and have the spaciousness and the freedom to kind of release when it needs to and how it needs to. So on that note, my heating pad is my godsend. Okay, folks, day 1, day 2, my bleed, catch me on my bed with the CBD oil, with the turmeric pills, with my heating pad laying all over me, and I'll just sleep. I'll sleep, I'll rest, I'll journal, I'll watch a movie. It is my permission to just let go. My body is doing so much work. I don't have to. My body's doing so much work. I don't have to do all the stuff that can be done at any other time of my month where I have more energy. I also, one of my dear friends, Megan, her company is Gitana or Gitana. And this is a really beautiful womb anointing oil. So it's a womb warming substance. And I'll take this and I'll put it really nicely right over the CBD oil. And it just says Women's Monthly Remedy on here, warming womb lunar oil. And all natural, all beautiful, you know, high energy charged natural plants from the earth, and I'll attach her here. And this stuff is so special and just goes right on. It feels so nice, right? A warm womb is a happy womb. I love oils too. So this one here is a little rosemary. Rosemary is such a sacred plant for all women and all witches and all non-women and non-witches. Really grounding. So when I'm bleeding, I want to feel close to the earth. I want to feel down, you know, I want to feel down in gravity. I want to feel really anchored. Rosemary is something that helps me get really anchored and grounded. Lavender is super nice too, but my favorite is rose everything. So this is like just rose water. I rose everything. Oh my God, I'm ruled by Venus. I'm a Taurus, so rose everything. I have this beautiful rose moisturizer. It's Evan Healy. It's a rose vetiver daily moisturizer that is so special. This rose water I just spray all over me. And then I have an incredible white rose tincture right now, and I'll add that to some cacao. Put some fresh rose petals in there, fresh lavender petals, and little lavender heads. And rose is so absorbed by the body. The body, especially the feminine body, loves rose. It is so compatible. Rose is actually the flower that is most alike our human skin. And so the body just drinks it up. It is such a sacred, feminine plant of love and beauty and elegance and radiance, which is what you are all of the time, Divine Sister, especially when you're bleeding. So I'll put a little bit of that in my cacao, and cacao is, you know, just high in magnesium, great for cramps. It's really grounding. It's that chocolate that will give you that kind of craving fix without consuming all of the sugars and processed chocolate. And it's so delicious and warming and beautiful. And I get my cacao from Cacao King, and I'll just attach, I don't have my bags in my kitchen right now, but I'll attach that here. And know that, you know, it is so natural and normal for this to be uncomfortable. But what I want you to know is that even when your bleed is uncomfortable, it's because your body's trying to tell you something. And you can go all month without listening to your body, but when you're bleeding, that is your time where it gets loud, right? If you've gone all month without listening, your bleed's gonna tell you, your body's gonna scream at you. but I want you to know that you have the opportunity and the ability and the divine connection to ask your body every day how it is, what it needs, what it's feeling, and give it to your body. And with that developed connection to my body, I'll be the first to tell you my cramps have gotten infinitely better than when they first were, when I was first diagnosed. And it's all about listening to your body every single day up until your bleed, so that when you're bleeding, it doesn't have to be this huge, huge thing. You can be listening to your body and releasing every single day. Imagine how much more sacred your period could be. So I hope this was helpful. I love talking about this stuff. I love it. So let me know if you have any questions. I'd be so excited to chat more. I have even more that I wanted to share about. I think this video is like super long. So my name's Olivia Morrissey. I'm a coach, I'm a guide, I'm a writer, I'm a healer, and I love this stuff. And I hope to initiate you and to share with you so much more sanctity of it all that you get to love it too. So chat soon, stay in touch, and happy bleeding!